Stop what you're doing, Habs fans, because the story refuses to die, and there is a very specific reason why. Pavel Zacha and the Montreal Canadiens, a connection that keeps resurfacing, keeps generating conversation, keeps making hockey people nod their heads with the quiet recognition of a fit that simply makes too much sense to dismiss. Elliotte Friedman planted the seed, the hockey world watered it, and now here we are, examining one of the most genuinely compelling trade possibilities remaining in this offseason with the urgency it deserves. Let's establish the foundation first, because context is everything in this conversation. The Montreal Canadiens finished the 2025-26 season with a 48-24-10 record and 106 points. Read that again, 106 points. This is not a rebuilding team padding its statistics against weak competition. This is a legitimate Atlantic Division contender that pushed all the way to the Eastern Conference Final and gave hockey the world something to genuinely marvel at. The rebuild, that patient, disciplined, sometimes agonizing process that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have been executing since their arrival, has produced something real and something dangerous. And Nick Suzuki, the captain, the heartbeat, the engine of everything Martin St. Louis is building, just delivered one of the most remarkable individual seasons in recent Canadiens history. 101 points in 82 games. Star-level output. Elite two-way performance. The kind of season that places a player firmly in the conversation of the Eastern Conference's premier centers. Suzuki has arrived completely and undeniably as one of the best players in this league. But here's the brutal truth that those 101 points simultaneously reveal. Suzuki is carrying too much. When one player is responsible for driving the offensive engine, winning the crucial matchups, absorbing the toughest defensive assignments, and somehow still producing at a point-per-game pace, the system is placing an unsustainable burden on a single set of shoulders. The playoffs, with their heightened defensive attention and compressed physical intensity, expose exactly that vulnerability. Opposing coaches can game plan against one dominant center in ways they simply cannot against two. This is precisely why Pavel Zacha refuses to leave this conversation. At 6'4" and 29 years old, Zacha just delivered the best season of his NHL career. 30 goals and 65 points in 78 games for the Boston Bruins, finishing 67th in NHL scoring. On a Bruins team that lacked significant secondary offensive firepower, Zacha still delivered consistent, reliable top-six production night after night. He won face-offs, killed penalties, contributed on the power play, and did all with the kind of quiet, professional consistency that championship teams are built around. Now project that profile onto the Canadiens roster. Zacha slides in directly behind Suzuki as a genuine second-line center, immediately distributing the offensive and defensive load across two legitimate pivots. St. Louis suddenly has the ability to protect Suzuki from the most punishing matchups, deploying him against second and third lines, while Zacha handles a share of the top-line opposition. The matchup advantages this creates are not marginal. They are transformative. Every opponent's game plan becomes dramatically more complicated when they can no longer simply assign their shutdown line to follow Suzuki and neutralize Montreal's entire offensive structure. Zacha's size adds another dimension that this roster genuinely lacks down the middle. The Canadiens are a fast, skilled, creative team that has embraced the modern NHL's emphasis on speed and puck movement. But in the playoffs, when the neutral zone tightens, when bodies are thrown with greater abandon, and when every inch of ice is contested with ferocious intensity, having a 6'4" center who can win battles, protect pucks, and physically impose himself becomes invaluable. Zacha provides that combination of skill and size that is extraordinarily difficult to find and virtually impossible to replicate through free agency at this stage of the summer. Friedman's wording in his latest 32 Thoughts is worth dissecting with precision, because the way he frames information always carries meaning beyond the surface. I heard that there were some conversations. I kind of thought that one of them might be Montreal, but I had a couple people deny that, but it seemed to make sense. This is Friedman operating in a very specific mode. He is not confirming a trade. He is not walking back a report. He is doing something more nuanced. He is acknowledging that the logic of the connection is so sound that even when people deny it, the denial feels incomplete. When Friedman says something seems to make sense after noting denials, He is leaving a very deliberate door open. The denials themselves are worth examining. In the NHL, front offices deny trade conversations as a matter of routine. The Canadiens have every incentive to maintain confidentiality around their most serious pursuits, particularly when negotiating with a division rival. Public confirmation of interest drives up asking prices and creates leverage for the other side. If Hughes is genuinely pursuing Zacha, denial is exactly the correct strategic posture. The absence of confirmation is not the same as the absence of interest, because this is where the complexity of the situation crystallizes into its sharpest form. Boston and Montreal are division rivals. The Bruins finish with 100 points themselves, 45 wins, a team that is not in full rebuild mode and has no obvious incentive to strengthen a direct competitor. Don Sweeney has been clear about his preference to extend Zacha rather than trade him, moving your most productive two-way center to a team you will face multiple times per season, a team that is actively pushing to surpass you in the Atlantic. Vision standings is a decision that requires extraordinary justification from Boston's perspective. And yet, the business of hockey sometimes transcends rivalry. If Zacha cannot reach an extension agreement with Boston that works for both sides, the Bruins face an uncomfortable choice. Trade him now for significant return, or watch him walk for nothing next summer. That leverage, that ticking clock, is exactly the kind of pressure that can force even the most reluctant seller into the market. Hughes understands this dynamic intimately, and his patience throughout this offseason, his refusal to overpay or compromise the organizational vision, suggests he may be waiting for exactly this kind of leverage to develop. The acquisition cost remains the central obstacle. Zacha is not a rental. He is a proven top-6 center entering what should be the prime years of his career at 29. Boston will demand a significant return, the kind of package that forces Hughes to make genuinely painful decisions about organizational assets he has carefully accumulated. Young NHL-ready players, premium draft picks, high-end prospects. The Canadiens have these assets, but every one of them represents future potential that carries its own value and its own opportunity cost. The question Kent Hughes must answer is whether Zacha, at his age, his production level, and the likely extension cost following any trade, represents a better allocation of those assets than continuing to build internally while supplementing through less costly additions. It is a genuinely difficult calculation, one that reasonable hockey minds can disagree about passionately. But here's what we know with absolute certainty. The fit is real, the need is genuine, and the connection makes enough sense that even Elliot Friedman cannot fully walk away from it despite the denials. In the language of NHL trade rumors, that is not nothing. That is actually quite significant. So, Habs Nation, let's have the real conversation. Does Pavel Zacha change the ceiling of this team in a way that justifies whatever Hughes would need to surrender to get him? Or does the combination of acquisition cost, rivalry complications, and extension uncertainty make this a deal that looks better on paper than it would in practice? And given what Suzuki just accomplished with 101 points, how much better does this team actually need to get to make a legitimate Stanley Cup run? Sound off in the comments below with the passion and intelligence that defines this community. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay locked in because this offseason still has explosive chapters yet to be written. We are the Canadiens, we are relentless, and our moment is coming. Go Habs go!